Hi, my name is Talia, and no, I'm not a junkie, not a dropout, and definitely not someone who gave up. I became homeless at 17, not because I failed, but because I dared to dream. The rain that night didn't just fall, it slammed against the windows like it wanted in. Lightning cracked somewhere behind the hills, and the house I had grown up in suddenly felt like a cage made of glass and thunder. Dad, I'm not going to the teaching college, I said. My voice shook, but I kept it steady enough to finish the sentence. I got accepted to the Interactive Design Fellowship in Seattle. It's not traditional, but it's real, and I want to design games that matter. Before I could finish, the sound of a fist hitting the table cut me off. You want to design games? My father said, his voice a low growl that snapped with thunder. You're throwing away a full scholarship to play with cartoons? Do you have any idea how ridiculous you sound? Mom sat silently across from us, staring at her tea like it had betrayed her too. She didn't speak. She never did when he got like this. I swallowed the lump in my throat. It's not cartoons. It's... He stood. You think the world needs another dreamer? We need nurses, teachers, jobs that matter. You want to chase fantasy? Fine. He walked to the coat rack, pulled out his wallet, and took out 2 crisp $100 bills. He slapped them on the dining table with enough force to make the tea spill. There, that's more than generous. Take it, pack your crap, and get out. I blinked. Wait, you're kicking me out? I'm not kicking you out, he said, walking toward the front door. I'm launching you into reality. I didn't even have words. My body moved before my brain could catch up. I ran upstairs, stuffed my laptop, charger, and a change of clothes into my old school backpack. My fingers trembled as I zipped it shut. When I came downstairs, the rain was pouring harder. My father stood by the open door, arms crossed, face carved in stone. He didn't even glance at me. My mother still hadn't moved from her chair. As I stepped onto the porch, thunder rumbled again. And then came his final blow. You'll come crawling back, he said, cold and certain. Starving, broke and humiliated, and when you do, don't expect this door to be open. Then he slammed the door. The sound echoed louder than the thunder. I stood there, soaked in more than rain. I looked down at the 2 bills in my hand. The price of my freedom. The price of their expectations. $200. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a place. But I had one truth burning inside me like a fuse. I would never crawl back. Rain clung to me like shame. It soaked through my shoes, my backpack, my soul. I walked aimlessly down the empty street, the glow of streetlights warping through wet lashes. Each step echoed with the same thought. Where do I go now? I checked my phone. 14% battery. No unread messages. No one to call. My friends were classmates who only knew me as the quiet girl in the back of AP English who never went to parties. No one would take me in tonight. Or maybe ever. I passed by the old library, closed. The bus station, empty. The only place still buzzing with light and life was a 24-hour internet cafe. The kind that smelled like energy drinks and desperation. I walked in. The guy at the counter barely looked up. 2-hour minimum, $6. I handed over one of the crumpled bills my father had thrown at me. He slid a key card toward me. Booth 7, no outside food. Inside, I sat down at the tiny cubicle. A cracked monitor, sticky keyboard, and the hum of tired computers around me. I didn't open any browser. I just sat, listening to the hum. I looked at myself in the black reflection of the monitor. Hair soaked, eyes red. Backpack slumped against the floor. I looked homeless. Because I was. I tried not to cry. Crying would drain me, and I had nothing left to give. So I opened a blank notepad window and typed, Day 0. Threw me out with $200, said I'd crawl back. I won't. At around 3 a.m., I dozed off with my head on the desk. A loud knock on the cubicle door woke me. "Your 2 hours are up." I nodded and stood, my back sore. I stepped out into the cold again. The rain had stopped, but the streets were colder now. Empty, uncaring. I walked 3 blocks to a public park and found a bench under a tree. I pulled my backpack to my chest, sat sideways, and wrapped my hoodie tight. The bench was cold metal against my skin. My body ached, but I couldn't stop shivering, not just from cold, but from the weight of being completely alone. Around 6 a.m., people started passing by. Joggers, dog walkers, people with purpose. I didn't move. If I did, I'd fall apart. Then someone tapped my shoulder. A girl, probably 20s, messy bun, coffee in hand. "You okay?" I looked up, not even trying to lie. Not really. She hesitated, then handed me her second coffee cup. "You look like you need this more than I do." Before I could say thank you, she smiled and walked off. It was warm. And I hadn't realized how long it had been since someone had looked at me with anything other than disappointment. That day, I walked into a diner and asked if they needed help. They didn't. I went to a grocery store. Same answer. Then a gas station. The manager looked me up and down and laughed. By noon, I was back at the park, sitting on the same bench. That's when I realized the $200 was down to $148.23. I had to make a plan. Fast. Or I really would end up crawling back. But deep inside, something stubborn and fiery refused. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. I'd sleep on every bench in the city before I knocked on that door again. That night, I slept behind a dumpster. The smell was unbearable. The ground was hard. A raccoon sniffed my bag at one point. I didn't scream. I didn't move. And when I finally closed my eyes, I whispered, "You said I'd crawl back." You don't know me at all. It was my 3rd night sleeping outside, and my body had begun to forget what comfort felt like. Every muscle ached. My backpack strap had left a bruise across my shoulder. I hadn't looked in a mirror in days, but I could feel the grime on my skin, the dullness in my eyes. That morning, I went to a public library just to sit indoors and charge my phone. I had 6% left. As the phone came back to life, I scrolled through my contact list. Most of the names felt hollow. People I hadn't spoken to in months. People who wouldn't even remember who I was. I hovered over one name I hadn't seen in a long time. Amira Hassan. We weren't best friends, but we used to talk after robotics club. She was kind, thoughtful, and most importantly, she listened. We'd lost touch after junior year. I didn't know what I was hoping for when I messaged her. Just one word. "Hey." To my shock, she replied 2 minutes later. "Amira." "Talia, is this you? Are you okay?" I hesitated. "Me. Not really. Got kicked out. Long story. 3 dots. Then more." "Amira, where are you? Are you safe? Do you need a place to stay? I live near Fairmont now." Tears welled up before I could stop them. "Me. I'm in Fairmont. I slept behind a gas station last night." She didn't wait for more details. "Amira, send me your location. I'm coming to get you." 20 minutes later, a small gray Prius pulled up at the library entrance. The passenger door swung open. "Talia?" I stepped forward, and for a second, she just looked at me. Her eyes were wide, not with judgment, but worry. "You look like you haven't eaten." I smiled weakly. "That's probably accurate." She drove us to a small apartment on the 2nd floor of an older building. Cozy, modest, but clean. I stepped in slowly like I didn't belong. "You can crash on the couch," she said. "No pressure, just rest." She handed me a blanket. Then something even more valuable, a grilled cheese sandwich and a bottle of water. That night, for the first time in days, I slept on something soft. The couch smelled like lavender and old books. I curled up, blanket wrapped around me, and listened to the hum of the fridge instead of the scream of sirens. I was safe, but I wasn't okay. The next morning, I woke to the smell of eggs and coffee. Amira was at the stove, wearing oversized pajamas and humming something from a musical. "You're up," she said. "You're not allergic to eggs, are you?" I shook my head. She placed a plate in front of me and sat across the table. "So, what happened?" I hesitated. Then I told her everything. My dream. The fellowship. My father. The $200. The rain. The bench. The diner that laughed in my face. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she just said, "Your dad's a coward. Anyone who throws away their daughter for dreaming big doesn't deserve to be called a parent." We talked for hours that day. About her life, too. Her struggles with anxiety, with expectations from her immigrant parents who wanted her to become a doctor. She was studying art therapy now, living on student grants and side gigs. "I don't have much," she said, "but I know what it's like to be told your dreams are worthless." She let me stay 3 nights. On the 4th morning, I started packing. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I can't overstay my welcome. You've done more than enough." She crossed her arms. "You're not going back to the street. Not on my watch." But I had made up my mind. Amira gave me a prepaid SIM card, $20 in cash, and a hug that lasted longer than I expected. "You're strong, Talia. You're not done yet." I nodded, tears burning behind my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me," she said. "Just make something amazing someday. Something that proves people like your dad were wrong." I walked out of her apartment with a charged phone, $20, and one promise echoing in my mind. Make something amazing. The city shelter sat behind a tall chain-link fence and a rusted green sign that simply read, "Northgate Transitional Housing. Check in before 6 p.m. I stood in front of it, clutching my backpack like a lifeline. The sun had just begun to set, casting long shadows across the concrete. I didn't want to be here. But the money from Amira was down to $6.48, and I hadn't eaten in almost 2 days. Inside, a plastic-faced receptionist slid a clipboard toward me without a word. I filled out the form. Name, age, last permanent address, emergency contact. I left it blank. She handed me a thin blanket and pointed down the hall. "Women's wing, 2nd floor, lights out at 10. I walked past a series of peeling posters about rebuilding lives and workforce pathways. The hall smelled like bleach and hopelessness. Each door I passed had a number on it. Each number felt like a countdown. Room 213. Mine. It was a shared room. 3 bunk beds, 6 girls, none older than 25. Most of them avoided eye contact. One girl was already asleep, earphones in. Another was arguing quietly on the phone with someone named Marcus. No one greeted me. I claimed a top bunk and didn't unpack. That night, I stared at the ceiling tiles and whispered Amira's words to myself like a prayer. "You're not done yet." The next morning, the fluorescent lights snapped on at 6 a.m. sharp. No alarms, no mercy. I shuffled downstairs for breakfast. Oatmeal, no sugar, no milk, just heat and texture. That's when I first met Diane. She stood behind the staff desk, clipboard in hand, lips pursed like she hated kindness. Mid-50s, stiff hair sprayed into immobility, eyes that scanned like barcodes. "You," she pointed at me. "New girl, orientation, now." She led me into a small office with mismatched chairs and a whiteboard that hadn't been erased in weeks. "Here's the deal," she snapped. "You don't steal, you don't fight, you don't bring drugs in here, you don't miss curfew, you don't lie, you don't test me, understand?" I nodded. She leaned in. "I don't care why you're here. I'm not your therapist, I'm not your mother. I'm your last stop before the street becomes permanent. Got it?" I nodded again. She stood up and handed me a folded paper. Job board assignments, available computer hours, counseling schedule. "Don't waste this. Most girls don't get a second bed." That week, I cleaned toilets, scrubbed kitchen trays, and attended 3 mandatory job readiness workshops that taught us how to write a resume for a job that would never care. I was quiet. I followed the rules. But Diane didn't like quiet. "You think silence makes you special?" she said one afternoon while inspecting the kitchen. "No one's gonna hand you a miracle, sweetheart." I didn't answer. One night, I asked to use the computer lab for 30 extra minutes. I was trying to sketch out a game prototype in Google Slides. Diane looked at me like I'd asked to borrow her lungs. "This is not a tech boot camp," she scoffed. "It's a shelter. You want to play computer genius? Do it on your own time." I walked away, shame burning in my throat like acid. But I didn't stop. At night, after curfew, I'd pull my laptop out under the blanket and quietly sketch game maps in PowerPoint. A world where lost kids could find shelter. Where you could earn hope like coins. Where you never had to beg for a second chance. It was stupid. It was everything. One afternoon, a girl named Bree peeked over my shoulder while I was sketching pixel sprites in my notebook. "What's that?" she asked. "A game," I said, instantly regretting saying anything. She nodded. "Cool." That was the first word anyone had said to me in 3 days. Diane noticed I wasn't breaking, so she doubled down. "You keep chasing that fantasy," she muttered one morning when I signed up for extra computer time. "Let's see how far it takes you when you're still here 6 months from now." But I wasn't listening anymore. I wasn't here to win Diane's approval. I was here to survive her long enough to leave. In a shelter full of people trying to just survive the next day, telling someone you're building a game sounded like a joke. I knew how it looked. A homeless girl with a 6-year-old laptop, sketching level layouts in a stolen notebook from the donation box. I wasn't asking anyone to believe me. I just needed to believe in myself long enough to finish. Every night, under the thin blanket of my top bunk, I would quietly open my laptop and keep building. The game was simple. A side-scroller where the player, a girl named Nova, had to navigate through a dark city collecting pieces of her voice that had been shattered and stolen. There were no weapons, no monsters, just emotional traps. Self-doubt, isolation, betrayal. Nova didn't fight. She endured. She kept walking, just like I did. After a week, I had a working prototype, barely functional, but enough to move a character and trigger sound bites. I played it once, then deleted half of it, convinced it was stupid. Then started again. One afternoon in the computer lab, Bree, the girl who once called it cool, leaned over again. "You still working on that game?" I nodded. "Can I play it sometime?" I hesitated. No one's ever played it but me. "Then let me be the first." I copied the folder onto a USB and passed it to her like it was a crime. She played silently for 15 minutes. When she was done, she didn't look at me right away. She just said, "That part where the screen goes all black and you have to just keep walking even though you can't see what's ahead?" "Yeah?" I've never felt more seen. That night, she told 2 other girls. The next day, they asked if they could try it. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't expect anyone here, surrounded by rules, trauma, cold food, and colder glances, to care about anything I made. But for 10 minutes at a time, we weren't in a shelter. We were in Nova's world, and it made people feel something. Even Diane noticed. "What's this?" she asked one morning, seeing a line of girls waiting for a USB stick. "It's a project," I said, careful not to smile. She rolled her eyes. "Don't let it become a distraction. No one here gets saved by fantasies." But something had shifted. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. One afternoon, Bree pulled me aside and said, "You should upload it, like online. Even if no one plays it, just let it exist." I didn't have a website or followers or confidence, but I did have the prototype. So I created a free itch.io page and uploaded the game under the name Project Nova. No bio, no backstory, no begging, just a download link. The first day, 3 downloads. Second day, 14. On the third day, someone left a comment. This broke me. Thank you for making something so raw. Then another. It's short, but it feels like a punch in the soul. That night, I stared at the screen, heart thumping. I had no money, no job, but I had something no one could take. Proof. Proof that my voice mattered. But I knew better than to think one little game would change everything. People might play it. People might feel something. But I was still here, still showering on a schedule, still eating gray oatmeal and getting side eyes from Diane. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything had. 3 weeks after I uploaded Project Nova, I received a message on Facebook from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Reed Montgomery, my mom's cousin. Technically, my second cousin. We'd spoken maybe twice in my life. He lived 2 cities over and worked in something tech-related. I remembered him as the guy who always showed up late to family cookouts and left early with a Bluetooth headset still in his ear. His message said, "Hey, kiddo. Heard you've been through some rough stuff. I saw your game. Amazing work. I think I can help." I didn't trust easily, but he was family, and he'd called my game amazing. We messaged back and forth for 2 days. He said he had connections in a small indie studio, that he could get my portfolio in front of someone, but I needed to polish up my pitch and be ready for a Zoom interview. I didn't even have stable Wi-Fi, but I believed him. Reed offered to pick me up from the shelter one afternoon and take me to a co-working space for the meeting. He arrived in a shiny car, smelled like cologne and coffee, and wore a Patagonia vest over a hoodie, like every tech bro I'd seen on YouTube. When I stepped into the car, he said, "Jesus, Tal, they've got you living like a ghost." He didn't mean it cruelly, but it stung. I didn't respond. He drove us to a glassy building with green walls and free kombucha. I used a loaned laptop to connect to a video call with someone named Aaron, Reed's so-called contact. Aaron barely looked at the screen. He asked generic questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What inspired you to build this game? It felt like a formality. The call lasted 12 minutes. Afterward, Reed said, "It went well. I'll follow up with him. These things take time, but trust me. You're in now." He dropped me off back at the shelter and handed me a $25 gift card to a grocery store. "You'll need this more than I do," he said with a smirk. I thanked him. I shouldn't have. A week later, I received an email that changed everything. It was from Aaron, but it wasn't addressed to me. He had accidentally CC'd me on a thread between him and Reed. Her backstory is perfect for PR, but she's not what we're looking for skill-wise. Still, if you want to submit her stuff under your name, go ahead. It'll hit harder with your credentials anyway. "Yeah," Reed replied. "She's just a kid. She won't know. Let's run it through me. We'll polish the project and pitch it as a team piece. If it lands, I'll loop her in as supporting dev." My fingers went numb. He hadn't wanted to help me. He wanted to use me, to steal my work, clean it up, and present it under his name for gain. I wasn't the dream. I was the angle. I didn't reply. I didn't scream. I forwarded the email to myself. Then I blocked him. And that night, I didn't sleep. The next day, I packed up everything I had and left the shelter. I didn't have a plan. Again. But I couldn't stay. Diane said nothing as I walked out the front gate, but her eyes followed me like she knew. Not everything that hurts you is the street. Sometimes it's family with good hair and clean smiles. That night, I sat in the corner of a 24-hour laundromat, drinking a vending machine coffee and staring at the forwarded email. I could have given up. Again. But instead, I opened my laptop. I renamed the folder Project Nova, Reclamation. And I started building, not to prove Reed wrong. not even to get revenge. But because no one, not even family, gets to rewrite my story but me. The laundromat hummed like a tired lullaby. Rows of machines spun around me like I was the only one in the world not moving forward. I sat cross-legged in the far corner, laptop balanced on my knees, the light of the screen bouncing off the scratched tile floor. I hadn't slept in 36 hours. My eyes burned. My shoulders ached. But my hands wouldn't stop typing. Reed wasn't going to steal this. No one was. I rebuilt Project Nova from scratch, rewrote dialogue, replaced the pixel art, added a new level where Nova walks through a glass hallway filled with people looking in, judging, doubting, and keeps moving forward anyway. I changed the soundtrack. The final soundbite? Nova's voice saying, "You can survive without their belief as long as you never stop believing in yourself." That line wasn't just for players, it was for me. By sunrise, the game was done. I uploaded it to itch.io under a new name, Nova, Alone, Not Broken. I added a short description, made by a girl they left behind. No studios, no sponsors, just truth. No social media push, no contacts, no hashtags. Just me, a laundromat Wi-Fi signal, and the quiet hope that someone, somewhere, might play it. Then I closed the laptop and cried. 2 days passed. I walked miles to the nearest library to charge my laptop and check if anything had happened. 89 downloads, 17 comments, 4 emails. The first email was from a girl named Zoe in Florida. I don't even play games, but I found this on a Reddit thread and it felt like you crawled inside my heart and wrote it down. Thank you. Then another. This game saved me from doing something I can't say out loud. Thank you. And another, who are you? This is the realest thing I've played in years. I'd like to talk. I work for a mental health plus gaming collective. We spotlight creators like you. I blinked at the screen. I wasn't dreaming. In the next 48 hours, the download count hit 2,300. Someone posted a Let's Play video on YouTube. A small streamer played it live and cried on camera. Then someone tweeted, "Some unknown indie dev made a game in a shelter and it's better than half the AA games I've played this year. Her name is Talia, find her, fund her." It went viral. Over 80,000 views in 2 days. Followers, emails, donations, job offers. I didn't know how to process it. I didn't even have a PayPal yet. I was still sleeping in stairwells, still hungry, still scared. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I borrowed a friend's hotspot and set up a Ko-fi page. Within hours, strangers sent me enough money to buy meals for a week. One of them sent a laptop. Another offered to pay for a month of co-working space. And the message I couldn't stop rereading came from a woman named Margot, creative director at a small but growing indie studio in Oregon. "Your voice is rare. Your work is real. If you're ever ready, we'd love to mentor you and maybe collaborate." That night, I found a cheap Airbnb someone offered me for free through Reddit. It was a tiny basement unit with a lumpy mattress and a broken heater. It felt like a palace. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, "You were right not to crawl back." Because the world had finally opened a door I didn't have to beg to walk through. After the viral wave, everything turned into noise. My inbox was overflowing with DMS. Some kind, some creepy, most overwhelming. Offers to collaborate, requests for interviews, networking invites, and far too many messages that began with, "Hey, Queen." I was exhausted. I had no manager, no PR team, just me, my cracked laptop, and a headache that wouldn't leave. That's when I saw the subject line that didn't try too hard. Nova. Thank you. The message was short, plain. No links, no emojis. "Hi, Talia. I'm Nathan Shu. I've been making indie games for 22 years, mostly stuff no one plays, but I keep making them anyway. Your game hit harder than anything I've played in the last decade. If you ever want a sounding board or just someone to talk dev to dev, I'm around. No strings attached. Just respect. P.S. Your level 3 design? That's masterful. You don't need polish. You need space to build. Nathan. I stared at it for a long time. He didn't ask for anything. He just saw me. We started emailing, then we moved to weekly calls. Nathan didn't treat me like a trend or a sob story or a prodigy. He treated me like a creator. He asked real questions. What's the story you haven't told yet? Where's the pain that hasn't made it into the code? What kind of world are you building? And why should we care? And he listened to the answers. One morning, he said, I'm starting a mentorship circle for devs who don't come from the usual path. You'd fit right in, if you want in. I did. Through Nathan, I met 6 other developers. One had coded a game entirely from a public library computer over 2 years. Another had escaped an abusive home and rebuilt her life through VR therapy games. We weren't rejects. We were survivors with source code. Nathan guided without steering. He reviewed my new builds, helped me structure a real project proposal, and taught me how to speak in pitch decks without losing my voice. He also said something I wrote on a sticky note and never threw away. The world doesn't need another game. It needs your game. He helped me apply for a micro grant through an arts tech nonprofit. I thought I wouldn't get it. I did. $5,000. To finish a full, polished version of Nova. The grant letter said, your voice reflects exactly what this industry lacks: honesty, vulnerability, and hope. I printed it, folded it, taped it above my mattress. With that money, I rented a small studio space, bought a better laptop, and finally left the shelter system for good. Every day, I coded from 7 a.m. to midnight. And every night I whispered thank you to a man I'd never met in person, who reminded me that belief doesn't need to be loud, just steady. Then one day, during a regular call, Nathan asked, So, you ready to talk about what happens when this game goes big? I laughed. Big? I'm just trying to finish it. He paused. No, Talia. You're building something people will remember. Start thinking like someone who's about to lead, not just survive. And for the first time, I believed him. I never thought I'd cry over a PDF. But when I opened the email that morning and saw the subject line, congratulations, grant payment enclosed, and then saw the amount, $5,000, my hands started shaking. It wasn't a donation. It wasn't a tip. It wasn't charity. It was earned. For my work. For me. I walked out of the co-working space that day and bought myself a bagel and a cup of real coffee. Not instant. Not from a shelter vending machine. And sat on a park bench across from the river. I stared at the coffee cup for a full 5 minutes before taking a sip. It tasted like dignity. With the grant money, I did 3 things immediately. I got a mailing address so I could apply for legal contracts and IDs without putting NA on every form. I bought a new laptop. Mid-range, nothing flashy, but faster than the wheezing Survivor I had been using. I rented a room. Not a shelter, not someone's couch. A small basement unit with no windows and a weird carpet, but it was mine. For the first time in almost a year, I had a key. And no one could take it from me. The grant came with mentorship check-ins and exposure through an online indie showcase. I uploaded a beta build of Nova Reclamation to the platform. Within a week, the page had 8,000 plus downloads, 300 plus comments, emails from streamers, educators, and even therapists asking if they could use the game in classes or mental health sessions. One email stood out. Hi, Talia. My name is Ruben. I work for Violet Sun, a nonprofit studio that specializes in therapeutic and socially conscious games. We're building a short-form interactive project about emotional resilience. Your work aligns perfectly. We'd love to discuss a contract for a freelance design role. Timeline 3 months. Paid hourly. Remote flexible. I stared at it, then reread it. Contract? Timeline? Hourly pay. My chest tightened. I didn't even know what a freelance designer charged. I asked Nathan. He said, "You're worth more than you think. Start at $35 an hour, don't apologize." I did. They agreed without hesitation. Just like that, I had a job. A real job. Doing the exact thing my father once called a waste of time and talent. 2 weeks in, they sent the first payment, $1,680. I didn't cry this time. I smiled. Then I walked to the nearest ATM, withdrew $100 in cash, folded it into an envelope, and wrote in tiny letters on the front, "For the girl who thought she'd never get here." I tucked it into the back of my notebook. Proof that this life, this victory, was mine. Some nights I still heard Diane's voice in my head. No one here gets saved by fantasies. And Reed's email, "She's just a kid. She won't know." But their words didn't sting anymore. They were fuel. And I was already miles down the road they said didn't exist. The message came on a Tuesday afternoon, not through email, not through social media. It was a voicemail. "Talia, it's your father. We need to talk. Things haven't been easy here. Your mother, she's not well. The school cut my hours. We had to sell the car. I know I wasn't fair to you, but if you could come home even just to talk." Click. I listened to it 3 times. Then I deleted it. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need it anymore. 2 days later, a letter came in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. But the writing was unmistakable. My mother's. "Dear Talia, I've replayed that night in my head 100 times. Your father was harsh, I was silent, and that silence haunts me. We were wrong. About everything. About you. You've done more on your own than we ever expected. And now, we need your help. If you can find it in your heart to visit us, we'd be grateful." At the bottom, barely legible, 3 words. "We miss you." I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I stood at the mirror in my tiny apartment. Talia, 22nd. Freelance designer, 2 shipped projects. Rent paid, fridge full, heart intact. I packed my backpack. This time not with fear, but with choice, and took the next bus back to the neighborhood I swore I'd never return to. The house looked smaller. The front yard hadn't been mowed. The paint on the door was chipped. It didn't scare me anymore. I knocked. The door opened slowly, and there he was, my father, grayer, slower, but still him. He stared at me like I was a ghost, like he wasn't sure I was real. Then quietly, he stepped aside and let me in. The kitchen was still the same. Same clock, same table. Same chair he once pounded with his fist when I dared to speak my dream aloud. "Thank you for coming," he said. I nodded. I didn't smile. My mother came in from the hallway, thinner than I remembered. Her eyes welled up the moment she saw me. "Talia." I didn't hug her. Not yet. We talked. They told me about the financial problems, the debt, the collapse of everything they thought was stable. I listened. Quietly. Firmly. Then my father said the words I never thought I'd hear. "You were right. About all of it." He looked down. I was afraid. And I turned that fear into control. I tried to mold you into what I understood, instead of trusting what I didn't. My mother wiped her eyes. "We didn't believe in you. And yet, you believed in yourself. That's what saved you." I let the silence sit. Then finally, I spoke. I didn't come here to be needed. I came here to be heard. I told him everything. The bench, the shelter, the betrayal, the rebuild, the first paycheck, the second. I didn't sugarcoat it. I wanted them to feel it. The weight of the story they were no longer allowed to write. They didn't interrupt. And when I finished, I stood. "I don't hate you," I said. "But I'm not coming back. Not to live, not to shrink. This visit is closure, not reunion." I placed an envelope on the table. Inside, $1,000. Use it for the mortgage. Or don't. I won't be sending more. Not out of spite, but because this chapter ends here. As I walked back toward the door they once slammed in my face, my father called after me. Talia? I turned. You came back. I nodded. But not crawling. Then I left. Outside, the air smelled cleaner than I remembered. I pulled out my phone and opened an email draft I'd been sitting on for weeks. Subject: Nova 2. In development. Because endings I'd learned were just stories that finally made room for better ones. And this one was mine.